Hello everybody, it is the 31st of October, we have made it to the very end. I'm using my selfie stick to speak with you today because yesterday one of my two darling little pussycats, yes Toby, I do mean you, was playing around with my tripod and broke it. It had done sterling service. It will be laid to rest in a recycle plant very nearby. And I have ordered a new tripod. In fact, I was thinking about ordering a new tripod anyway because the first one I'd bought was fine as the first purchase of such a tripod, but in fact there are better pieces of equipment that will be more useful for the kind of things that I'll be doing with hopefully with my podcast going forward. So Toby was much ashamed, but I forgave him very quickly, and we've all moved on somewhat. So I'm at the 31st of October. I would like to thank everybody who has accompanied me on this experiment in vlogging. I set out not really knowing what I was taking on, and I think that's probably a good thing because had I known, I may have balked at the idea. Excuse me, sorry. It has been a considerable commitment of time and energy and creativity and inventiveness, really, to think about what I could share with you, and to keep things, I hope, interesting. And I have been very grateful for the comments on both the style and the content of the vlogs. They really did help me to understand what I was doing well, what I wasn't doing quite so well, and what I could focus on as each day went by. So I'm always slightly bemused that people like yourselves actually want to hear the things I want to talk about, but I'm very happy to share with you this as well. So it's a slightly, it's not false humility. It does amaze me, but at the same time, I'm very grateful that you have enjoyed spending time with me. So, was it worth it? I think so. I've spoken about some topics that I would never probably have addressed in the main podcast. Quite intimate matters about my monastic life, my spirituality, my mental health. Those are all topics which are quite intimate and personal. And I did think quite long and hard before talking about those matters. But in the end, I thought that, I could make this a quite light and fluffy vlog and podcast, and there's nothing wrong in that. But I thought you wanted to get to know me a little better, and those are all aspects of who I am. I've also had the great opportunity, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity, to get to know my local area a lot better and to discover new things about my local area. And I know that you've enjoyed that voyage of discovery with me, and it's certainly been a huge positive part of this whole experience. I've developed my editing skills. My podcast will never be a slick, fast-paced podcast. That's never been the intention. It's not the subject matter. But even allowing for that, I've learned about the grading of film and picture-in-picture and separating soundtracks and a whole host of techniques that I might eventually have got around to on the weekly podcast, but because I've been doing each episode every day, it's kind of embedded those skills much more quickly. So that's a huge positive. As I say, if I had known how much work is the wrong, how much effort it was going to take for Vlogtober, I may not have started it. I'm glad I didn't know, and I'm glad I did start it. It has been a significant part of my life for the last month. It has eaten into my free time quite considerably, and I am looking forward to getting back to having more time for my general crafting. But it has also, as part of that, been another vehicle for my self-expression, for me to talk about things that interest me, and to do so in ways and to present it in ways which are a little bit not quite my ordinary, as it is now, speaking to camera, direct, face to face. I'm delighted that I stuck with it, that I managed to complete a vlog every day of the month. And there have been some days this month when I've really, really not felt like it, but knowing that I had an appreciative audience encouraged me, gave me the discipline, gave me the determination to just record even a 10, 15, 20-minute chat. The process has also given me lots of ideas for how I can develop my channel going forward. The main channel program will always be the podcast, and the weekly episode is my preferred way. I think a week is long enough that it gives me time to think about things that I might want to raise in the main podcast, and to actually get things done, and maybe as part of this experience of Vlogtober, maybe also to film elements of the podcast during the week rather than the single hour-long unedited format that I previously used. I think I will still want to do the main bulk of the podcast as a single unedited conversation, because I like that focus that it gives me when it helps me to really get to grips with what I'm talking about, as it were. But when I say unedited, what I really mean is that I will record as live, but then possibly add in extra bits and pieces of video that will help to illuminate ideas or techniques that I'm talking about in the actual podcast. So I think overall, I would have to say that I'm very happy with the experience of Vlogtober. I would encourage any of you who are bloggers or vloggers to do something similar at some point for yourself in the future. It has been, as I say, quite a challenge, but a really rewarding challenge. And it's given me the opportunity not just to let you see more about me, but through the regular comments that I've had from people, to build a stronger relationship than perhaps the weekly podcast was giving me. Going forward, I don't think I will do a Vlogtober again. As I mentioned at the weekend, I think I might do extra little episodes of local history, local interest tours kind of thing. But I think the daily commitment probably would be too much for the foreseeable future, partly because I'm not sure that I would have that many more things I could talk about every day for a month. One of the ideas that is kind of bouncing around in the back of my mind is one of the things that having this podcast gives me, and watching other people's podcasts gives me, is the sense of community. I obviously have Wendy who lives next door, and I know the ladies who work in Masons quite well. They know my bank card even better. That's another story. But actually, crafting I find is quite a solitary occupation. It's something I tend to do in my room, maybe listening to podcasts or watching TV or whatever. And one of the ideas that has been bounced around it on other podcasts, and something I would like to look into, is the possibility of a virtual knit night, where using conferencing software like Zoom, which is one that I've used professionally at work, or Google Hangouts, or any of these multi-site conferencing facilities online, to maybe organise a virtual knit night or a knit morning, because obviously people will be in different time zones. And if that is something that people would be genuinely interested in, then I would be quite happy to organise and host such an event in the future. So I've got ideas like that. I also want to do some, not tutorials, but some demonstrations perhaps of how I craft and what I'm crafting. I'm not. I wouldn't put myself in the category of a great teacher of craft. There are, the Crochet Crowd and Jada and Stitches are two. Very Pink Knits is another, and Craftsy in terms of its overall tutorials, but also the videos they have on YouTube, and Mizora Star Quilt Company, for example, for quilting. There are some really professional outfits where the quality of the tutorials they offer is very high. But I think there is scope, even within all that, for someone like me, a very basic amateur crafter, to film perhaps what I'm doing, and that in itself could be of interest, rather than to give a full-blown tutorial on a particular technique or a particular pattern. It's one of the things that has cropped up a couple of times in the past, where I've found something that I'm interested in and I'm making something. People have said, well, could you show us? And with the basic setup I've had previously, it's not really been practical for me to be able to do a demonstration of what I'm doing. So I think maybe there is scope for me to do that, particularly with the newer equipment once it arrives and once I've worked out how to set it all up and use it. So overall, I think Vlogtober has given me a great deal of encouragement, a great deal of support, a great deal of enjoyment, a great deal of challenge, and a number of ideas to take forward into the future. So on that note, once again, I'd like to thank you all for accompanying me on this enterprise, and I will continue to enjoy speaking to you all on a weekly basis on my main podcast. So until Saturday, goodbye for now.